at the end.
Yeah.
Cool. We're
Right.
also recording the webinar, so we can send a link out to the recording to all the other supporters.
Yep.
And feel free to keep your video on, but also feel free to turn it off.
Yep. Whatever you feel like. Cool. Okay. So let's get started. I wanted to just give a really quick background, but I think just given the audience, I think you guys all know exactly what it's about. You know we're doing ankle-foot orthotics for kids. I think you guys all know that it's a global issue. There are about 100 million kids globally who actually need these devices, and at the moment only 1 in 10 get it. Without having access to orthotic devices, many kids with disabilities end up having deformed legs, and they basically end up in a wheelchair. And we're looking at ways to solve that. So for probably, it's been about 2 years right now, we've been working on a collaborative project to make this technology a reality, partnering with Cerebral Palsy Alliance, with RoboHand, I see Brod's online, with Northcott Innovation, we've got Sam online for Northcott Innovation, with Orthotics, and with Mobius, who are the clinical trial experts.
And Northcott too.
And Northcott as well.
Yeah.
And the project was to develop the technology. So we developed an open source 3D scanner specifically for kids, do a clinical trial with about 20 kids, do mechanical testing to make sure the materials are up to scratch, and then upgrade 2 orthotics clinics, one in New South Wales and one in Victoria, to make this technology available, and release an open source package to stimulate quicker uptake of this technology in the industry. So really quickly, just a summary of the issues today versus where we want to be, where we set out, what we set out to do, is firstly, we wanted to replace the distressing experience of plaster casting that they have at the moment with a quick digital scan done in seconds. We wanted to replace the current manual fabrication process that have wait times of 4, sometimes 6 weeks, with a 3D printed process where we can do it in as little as 48 hours. And we also wanted to address, by doing that, help address the global shortage of orthotists, which frequently lead to wait times of up to 12 months, by increasing their productivity using a digital workflow, which has been shown to increase their productivity by about 400%, meaning that they can help more kids quicker. So this is the result. I'm going to show you a quick video of the technology, just a really quick video, and then we'll get into all the bits in more detail. I think it was already open there. Yeah. So I'll just stop this one. Okay. Full screen. So that is an actual kid in a clinical trial getting their legs scanned. We developed an instantaneous scanner, especially for kids with wriggly legs. More about that later. Once you have a scan, we then have an automated process where we're more and more automating the modeling of the orthotics. So we don't design it; the orthotist designs it. We model it to their prescription. Once it's modeled, we send it to a medical grade 3D printer, not your normal desktop printer. It's the big way of printers. It's about $1 million printer. It gets printed in medical grade nylon. Comes out of there. We then ship it back. There's a few of them right here. We ship it back to the orthotist that fits it to the child, and the child walks out of there with their new 3D printed AFOs. So that's kind of the technology in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's the sort of we've been calling it the scan, print, fit workflow, but in between there, throughout the study, we've developed so many different quality control processes, little novel changes the way we design stuff. There's been a whole dialogue between the language that a clinician speaks and the language that an engineer speaks. So it's been like an amazing and very steep learning curve, and all of these things, which in this video makes it look like a very quick sequential thing. But in reality, it was taking us, for the first few kids, several attempts to get it right. And I think by the end of the study, we ended up getting an accuracy of 100%. I think at the beginning it was something like 20% or something. So Yeah, so that just represents the epic learning curve.
Yep. So as a result of this, we now have 22 kids and counting in Australia that have AFO, 3D printed AFOs just from us. As far as we've been able to see, that means that Australia is now the country outside of, there are now more kids in Australia wearing 3D printed AFOs than in any other country except for the US. So we're pretty happy about that. And the technology will be available from the 1st of August for at 2 clinics in Sydney. So it's there, it's ready.
Yeah.
So wanted to give you a bit more of a background behind the scenes, so you can meet the team, see the nuts and bolts in a bit more detail, and just get a good feel for what's actually happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a couple of people one by one to each come on and tell you about, show you what they've been up to, what's happening.
Yeah, the ones lurking there in the background.
Lurking in the background.
Yeah. So first up, you're going to hear from Corey, who's a genius in the making, a made genius in the making, who's been doing like tons of mechanical testing, and he's the scientific one.
Yeah. Come on in, Corey. Come on in.
I'll just sit. Perfect. So first of all, hey everyone, I'm Corey. I'm currently the Research and Development Engineer at AbilityMade, and this year, last year, basically I was doing my honours thesis and for my mechanical engineering degree, and it was basically a thesis on a variety of topics of interest for AbilityMade. It was basically mechanical testing of the effect of basically the environmental effects on 3D printed nylon and AFOs. And also I did quite a bit of fatigue testing as well. So basically we were looking at the impact of sunlight, sweat, and dyes on 3D printed nylon and polypropylene. We did this with basically in extreme circumstances, extreme scenarios, and we just wanted to determine the effects of how sunlight's going to affect 3D printed nylon, children's school using the AFOs, how it's going to affect the mechanical properties. And also, there are a lot of people out there that do dye 3D printed objects, so we also wanted to dye test it. So just to see the effect of dyes on 3D printed nylon. And then we basically did tensile testing, which is basically pulling a test piece of nylon and polypropylene basically until it breaks, and it gives us a lot of valuable information on it. And we got a heap of information that we used quite a bit, and basically about its strength, how it acts, when it breaks, how it breaks, if it would break in certain circumstances. And then we also did a lot of testing on we printed a lot of the nylon in different orientations, and then we tested basically strength and how much it elongates before it breaks in a number of scenarios. And then we did a lot of fatigue testing. On the left, we're going to see a video of Tara, which is a fatigue testing machine, and it is connected to, hopefully it will play.
Go.
Yep,
there you go.
There we go. So the Tara is the mechanism in the center, and it's connected to Instron, which is a fatigue testing machine at the Sydney University. And we just wanted to basically test these AFOs out in actual usage scenario, well, not actual, simulated usage scenarios, just to see how it would act when it undergoes thousands of cycles, because we know that a child goes through approximately 1 million steps in the time that they use these AFOs. So we wanted to test these AFOs out in those scenarios, basically. and we found out quite a bit about it, as you could see in those graphs. And we just wanted to basically test if the nylon AFOs had differing characteristics to the polypropylene AFOs. And they did pretty well. I got around to doing 10,000 cycles on both, and they both did very well with it. And we also have another student that's continuing my work this year at Sydney University. And this brings us to the research currently being done. So we have 4 students, one from UNSW, UTS, USIT, and ANU, working on a variety of projects. They're computer simulating new designs, as you can see in the right bottom corner. And then they're continuing the fatigue testing work that I started last year at Sydney University. And they're testing new materials in UTS and at Sydney University. So the top right-hand corner, that's an AFO made by a HP state-of-the-art printer that is just coming into the industry. It's much cheaper. We have the possibility of printing with nylon 11 instead of nylon 12, which means we're going to get better mechanical properties, and it's going to be cheaper. So we're just testing these all out before we actually roll out with them. On the left, we have a Stratasys J750 AFO, which is basically a prototype of a prototype. This is it. Basically, it's made from 2 materials of differing hardnesses, and different parts of it have different hardnesses. And it's ripping apart in my hand as we speak. So we have the toe plate, for example, that is very flexible, and we have the strap that is somewhat strong. And then we have the front basically torn off at this point. This is just basically us trying out new printers, and we're basically, with this printer, possibly in the future, we'll be able to print the padding as part of the printing process instead of it being put in later on. So we're just trying out a whole a heap of stuff. The bottom right-hand corner, that's just new designs being tried out by a student at UNSW, is computer simulating and try to take away mass. It's quite a good kind of exercise that we're trying to do, because if you think about kids in the Northern Territory and Upper Queensland, it gets quite hot there. So we're trying to just basically add breathing holes to the AFO without compromising its strength. And also there's biomechanical functions to adding holes into AFOs. But we're trying to do that without compromising the safety and the strength of the AFO. And that brings us to
Perfect.
the 3D scanner.
Thanks, Cody. Cool. Who's next?
Good morning, I'm Rick, engineer that's been working with Boeing and Ford and Toyota for a long time, and for all the people who have funded these projects, I thank you for getting me out of there and into this exciting stuff. I want to talk about the scanner, which we're now trying to not call a scanner, we're trying to call a photo capture rig. The first photo capture rig that we built and are currently using is called Argus, named after a Greek mythical creature with 100 eyes. Argus uses photogrammetry, which is a process that takes either multiple cameras or multiple photographs of an object, and then using some incredibly clever mathematics turns them back into a 3D model. During the clinical trial, to make sure that we were doing the right thing, we used some very traditional measuring techniques. We got a dressmaker's hem ruler to make sure we got the heights right. We got a piece of paper and a pencil to trace around the shape of the foot, just to make sure that we were getting the shape right. The scanner, as we saw in the quick video at the beginning, allows the orthotist to actually get in there, move the leg into the most appropriate position, leave the hand in there or not leave the hand in there as appropriate, and then 35 cameras instantaneously take 35 photographs at the same time, so the child can move quite a bit. We then take those 35 cameras, put them into software. We're currently using a software called Zephyr, which takes those 35 cameras, stitches them together, then with some manipulation in Zephyr, we create that 3D model. We're working on a new scanner, which is internally called Yengeç, which is Turkish for crab, because of the way the doors open, made of aluminium, and is meant to be portable and light and strong and customizable and pretty, and folds up so that it becomes furniture in the clinic. And we hope to be building the first one of those like tomorrow.
Yeah, we've got a wooden wooden prototype version is in the back here. Belinda's seen it, and it's working. So we're now progressing. I think, as Rick said, all the components for the fully commercially ready version will be arriving in the office in the next day or two. So we'll be building the first actual commercially ready scanner, which will go to Northcott.
And the people who are going to help us document it and open source it are arriving tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
Which is going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, next bit, which is also me, is this 3D modelling. Oops, so we don't want to start there. How do we?
Can we go back? Is that the video?
I need to go back. Let's start at the beginning, I guess. Yep, so 3D modelling uses computer-aided design software and the scan from the scanner and a prescription from the orthotist, and we combine that in a CAD model using parametric modelling, associativity, and some macros. The image on the right-hand side of the screen is the macro we wrote that sits inside Inventor. It manipulates curves and surfaces and solids to match the shape of the foot, the orthotist prescription, adding in clearances for the lump on the edge of your ankle, malleolus, arch lifts, create a thickened solid, put in the trims, add additional features. If it's a hinged AFO, then we put in the hinge and we put part numbers and we put pretty pictures on the back and those sorts of things. Currently, I'm trying to automate this process more and more. At the end of the design, or at the end of the modelling, we send off a whole bunch of pictures to the orthotist, automating that process at the moment as well. So the pictures are taken from the 3D model, sent to the orthotist for their approval. Once they approve it, it gets sent back to us. We then prepare the model using an STL file for 3D printing. We have managed to get the modelling time down from tens of hours to 3-4 hours on a good day. I'm hoping with the automation we can get that down more and more reliably, and requiring, with more people who are less skilled than Ken and I will be able to create AFOs much more quickly. And that's me done.
Cool. Excellent. Then next we have here. Oh, I want to start that again. Next. I'll show the online prescription in a sec, but that's actually outside of the project. So I'm wondering if maybe we'll give Sam an opportunity first to give you guys an overview from the Northcott Innovation side, an overview of the clinical trial. So Sam, I'm going to unmute you here. Sam? She is unmuted.
Yep, I am here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep, we can hear you. Clear.
So the clinical trial, I suppose the update to tell people is that it's been going really, really well. So as you can see in the slide, we've spoken to a lot of people from a lot of different places with a lot of different needs, but obviously the clinical trial had quite strict parameters on who could join and who couldn't join. So far the clinical trial has seen 28 children, and we've had 13 children complete the entire 6-month period. The trial also has an additional 4 kids who are still waiting to complete the 6-month period. So obviously anyone who can do maths would be able to identify that we've had about 11 kids withdraw from the clinical trial. But the thing to, I suppose, recognise in that is the reason that the kids pulled out is for circumstances not related to the actual production of the 3D AFOs. So kids pulled out because they needed orthopaedic intervention, maybe they needed Botox, maybe they needed some serial casting. And all those reasons, I suppose, have nothing to do with the AFOs itself, but they impact on a child's ability to participate in the trial. So we're doing really, really well. The next 4 kids will be finishing in the next kind of 8-ish weeks, give or take. And then all the kids will be done. I think the initial data indicates that one of the primary purposes of why the trial existed in the first place was to measure the impact on that child's social well-being when they go through that process. And we've got some really, really good anecdotal evidence to say families and kids find the process far less stressful than what they did the manual fabrication process. So, even if, Corey said, the AFOs stand by themselves, they're mechanically fine. We know that, it's faster to manufacture them. But I suppose for me, with my clinician's hat on, the key take-home message is that it's easier for kids to get this done, and families are happier getting it done, and no one's finding it stressful anymore. So, tick, tick, tick.
Yep, happy.
Happy, happy, happy.
Yeah. We had, I don't know if this is a good time, we were not trying to prove that the AFOs had better biomechanical outcomes. We just wanted to show that it had the same mechanical outcomes as the traditionally manufactured AFOs.
Yeah.
But we actually ended up getting quite a lot of parents going, my kid can walk so much better with these than they could in the past. Because, for example, I'll just show an example here. One of the moms said that her daughter always had to walk up the stairs sort of sideways, like this. And that's because with the traditional AFOs, the front is really stiff. So, so she doesn't flex. So she couldn't walk up the stairs. But with the 3D printed one, we can control the thickness at every point. So we actually make the front a little bit thinner and more flexible. And as a result, her daughter can now just walk upstairs normally, run up the hill, do things that she would never be able to do with the traditional manufactured AFOs. So we had a lot of anecdotal evidence come up of ways that because the fit's better, we can control better, it is actually better. However, that's very hard to show that in a clinical way because we have to identify metrics, etc.
Yeah, I think from a regulatory point of view, to try to claim that a medical product is, better or, has certain, benefits. It's a very touchy area. There's very strict rules around that, which is hard for us dreamers because we want to get excited. We want to do fancy stuff. We want to, make these super duper amazing feats of engineering, but actually what we're just trying to do now is to improve the experience and make the orthotist more productive. An indirect impact that this process has had is that throughout the study we found out that of all the allied health professions, orthotists have the most claims, occupational health and safety claims because of the nature of their work. Because they're in the back, they're in the back workshop and they're using tools and, they're using toxic materials and stuff like that. And we didn't know that when we set out. So actually an impact that we didn't realize we were having was on the orthotist's safety at work. So I thought I'd just throw that in there.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Then we're also, as part of this, so this is outside of the project, but this is just what the project has allowed us to leapfrog into. So AbilityMade, it's allowed us to start a social enterprise. So the money that you put into the funding went into the project has not just stopped at developing the technology. That's allowed us to start a social enterprise with a scalable business model that is now making this available to orthotists across the world. So we're starting in Australia, but it's just going to get rolled out to orthotists all across the world. Yeah. Our business model is basically the same as it's a central fabrication service, which again, if you have ever been to the dentist, it's the same as when you go to the dentist and they take some dentures, take some scan of your mouth.
Yeah, it's what we're playing in the background right now.
Yeah, all the stuff playing in the background it's just the online ordering platform. Mm-hmm. So an orthotist anywhere in the world can go on there. They can go and scan the child with whatever scanner they want. They can use our scanner or a different scanner. They can go and add in their prescription in there, submit it to us. We'll get it modeled here by Kim and Rick. We'll get it 3D printed at the nearest 3D printer in whichever territory or country they are, shipped to the local orthotist and fit it to them. So it's something we're quite excited about because it has the potential to reach kids in any corner of the world.
Yeah.
And as a result of this, one thing we're super proud of is we actually won the Excellence in Innovation category of the National Disability Awards last year. Ta-da, there it is. Ta-da, Excellence in Innovation. Oh, this way, I think. We're very, very excited about that. Mm. Yeah. So thank you very much to you guys, man. We would not, it's your help that made us be able to do that. So I know we're all almost out of time for this webinar. So
Yeah.
what's next is by August this year, which is about 6 months, six weeks, very close, 6 weeks from now. It will be available at 2 clinics in Sydney. One will be Northcott and the other one will be in Guildford.
Yeah.
By November, we'll have it available at a clinic in Melbourne, and we'll also be releasing the open source package and the clinical trial reports. And then during 2019, we'll be looking at rolling this out to at least 20 more orthotic clinics in Australia, and the year after we've identified a couple of territories outside of Australia where we'll start rolling it out to.
Yeah. And AbilityMade will be continuing to, after this project, work with hopefully all the partners that we were joined, with, but we'll definitely be working with Northcott Innovation and Northcott. And we are actually looking for 2 people. So we're just putting the word out there. If you know someone who really would get into this mission, I think that's the most important thing, and is looking for a job. We're looking for 2 types of people. We're looking for a marketing and engagement person to help us, with our business development, but we're also looking for a project coordinator to lead a project that we can't tell you about, that we really want to tell you about, but we can't tell you about. So we'll tell you about that when we can. So if you know anyone who, would align with our values and is quite skilled in those areas, it'd be great if you could just let us know. Yeah. That's it from us. Maybe we'll throw it out to question time.
Yeah.